it's absolutely fine. And I'll try my best also to monitor the chat. So if you do have anything you want to put in the chat, please go ahead. All right, 1 hour on a very, very extensive and a complicated topic. Now, I run many courses and indeed tend to specialize on leadership, but leadership that is based very much on emotional intelligence. So I often get asked by people, more or less when I begin the course, tell me they're worried, they're concerned. How is AI going to affect us? Is AI going to replace our jobs? Will we become redundant? And generally speaking, these are certainly leaders, it's an interesting question, naturally, that everybody is posing. Just let me confirm one thing to you first of all. Now, today, in today's world, business world, we regard anybody who has a key role or a key responsibility where that responsibility extends to having to influence somebody to do something or to make a decision of some kind, then that person is a leader because they're a very high value individual contributor. And that means that that's most of you, or all of you, in fact. I don't know the background of you, but I'm absolutely sure the very fact that you're attending this illustrates that. So you don't have to have a team. The important thing is you're in a key role where people come to you and they depend on you for your knowledge, for advice, for guidance, whatever it happens to be, whether you have a team or not. Of course, you may have a team, and then that is also the definition of leadership. So, bearing that in mind, then we are all leaders. So let's begin, because this is actually talking not so much about AI versus EI. It is the power of emotional intelligence, EI, and artificial intelligence, AI, in the workplace. Let's have a look at it. So here's the first thought. This lady is from IBM. I have to tell you, that was one of the companies I worked for years ago in the UK, where I come from. That was many years ago, because I've been in the UAE now since 2003, 2004. But then I later I came over here to open up Hitachi Data Systems, which is indeed an IT company, producing and providing the largest IT systems, some of the largest IT systems in the world. And then I went to work for HP, Hewlett-Packard, also a mighty company, doing the same thing. But why I like this quotation is because when I was working for IBM, AI was not something that was new. And I'm going back now, dare I say this, but it's 35 plus years ago we were talking about AI, but we could never realize it at that point because we hadn't got the technology. And although some of the technology was starting to emerge in the labs, it wasn't commercially viable. It was too expensive. Well, all that changed, and we will see this. Now, this is what Ginny Rometty says. She says that actually AI does not change the world. It's people that change the world, with AI as their very valuable partner. And that's the first message I would like to deliver to you. AI in itself does not change the world, but people do. But using AI as a very valuable resource. So let's just think about this. Just a quick little challenge to you, and you can use the chat here if you can. I want to ask you this. Name me one thing which you think AI can do better than humans. And Just let me know on the chat line, if you can, on the chat, what is one thing that AI can do better than humans? Where's the chat? There's no chat. I actually see. Okay. Okay. So let's see. I'm not sure. I have not. Oh, there it is. Okay. Right, let's see. Reconciliation, data analysis, analytics of complex database. Correct. Data calculations, data gathering. Oh, Mustafa, not always. Interesting. Less bias, says Nesreen. Translate words into different languages and they can think. Absolutely. Read large amounts of data, 100%. And they're pretty good at maths. Correct. I'm going up now. So there's quite a range of different views, but very much along the lines of, if you want to call it logic here, summarize under large amounts of data. I like that. Yes, summarizing things quickly, and down to decision making, quick responses, etc. AI can analyze vast amounts of data at incredible speed, identifying patterns in insights that would take humans years to uncover. Oh, really? That's by ChatGPT. Do you think they're a little arrogant in that? Maybe not. And I like Asif. Nothing. Nothing. They can't do anything better than humans. I like the attitude. But they can actually, some people say, provide suggestions and business plans, says Tama. And then we go through the lot. So thank you for that. And actually, now what I'd like you to do is to ask you this. Now, can you name one thing that EI or humans, one thing that humans can do better than AI? So let's have a look at the chat this time. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think. I'm looking for the chat again. Where is the chat? Okay. Entertainment. Yeah, probably. All right. So feelings, have empathy. Absolutely, Gary. Feelings. Farina, sympathy, rational decisions. Okay, so what Irfan is saying that humans don't make rational decisions. Interesting point, Irfan. Yes, Eden. EQ, passion, think and empathize, says Abiodun. Yes. And relationship, says Hussein. But spot on. Emotional intelligence, correct, from HR. Entertainment, love. Yes, correct. IQ. So they are better than humans are better at IQ. Interesting point. We'll have a look at that. I'm glad you raised it. Rota is emotional intelligence and decision making. Interesting point about that one too. Decision making. Contextualized data and analysis for people, says Divya. Asif, control emotions. There. So humans can do that better. That's an interesting point. Yes, empathy, emotional intelligence. So we get the same things here. Human gut feeling. Yeah. We made AI. Correct. Salmanuel. Yeah. What else is there? Sharif, empathy, emotions. Emotions. That's Nisa. That's actually what I was looking for. It's emotions. Now, decision making, feeling, and sympathy. Okay. Intuition. Yep. Think with heart. Correct. There we go. Interpersonal relationships. Completely true. Humanitarian, correct. Adapt new learning with them from their mistakes. Well, actually, they can do that. That's what they were originally regarded as, machine learning, but actually not necessarily covering everything. So, Amal, you're kind of right. Take smart risks. Yep, that requires other things. Creativity, ethics, decision making, they can. Believing in someone, but we can, I should say, believing in someone, absolutely, and to describe feelings. Okay, we've got a good collection of things there, and you've hit the nail on the head with so much of it. So thank you for that. Now, what are we going to cover? So I'm going to go into this year and just let's check what kind of a world we live in, because it's vitally important. And then just how has AI suddenly emerged? And actually, some people say it's important, some people say no. Let's look at that. And then we'll look at how people have put AI to the test and what's happening on the human side. That's fascinating as far as I'm concerned, because that's what I do. I look at this all the time. And then just bottom line, some very easy high level conclusions in the time that we have. Okay, so let's have a look at the world in 2025. Remember, if anybody's got anything to say, please don't hesitate. Just shout out or raise your hand or whatever you want to do. Put it in the chat. So we've been living for the last 25 to 30 years. Many of you will have heard of this, in a VUCA world. Where that world is very volatile. It changes constantly, and that brings along uncertainty. Not quite sure sometimes what that means. Therefore, it brings its own added complexity. And when all that happens, then there could be multiple meanings to situations. It could mean this, it could mean that. In other words, it's ambiguous. But then something happened in 2020. The pandemic. Now, the pandemic hit us hard in a different way, and the consequences of the pandemic hit us hard in a different way. We're still living in this kind of VUCA world, but this is actually evolved now into Barney. I don't know if anybody's heard of Barney. So this is most definitely post-Brexit, post-Brexit, post-pandemic. So the volatility has now evolved into a brittleness. The world is fragile. The world can break. Systems can break. Just remember, 9 months ago, 9 months ago, when one of Microsoft's partners introduced some kind of an upgrade to software, a tiny upgrade. It was small, and it brought the airline industry down overnight. One small thing can do that. And of course, quite apart from everything that's going on politically around the world, which in turn brings its own difficulties in terms of anxiety, and mental health has increased significantly. And actually, it was high in VUCA. It is high in VUCA, but Barney brought about another level. And it remains in many ways. And the other thing is that the generations and the generation gaps that exist bring anxiety as well. I don't have time to go into all of that today, but suffice it to say that the youngest generation is suffering more than everybody else. So we have to bear that in mind, actually, in terms of anxiety and stress. It's non-linear. The complexity of VUCA is now non-linear, meaning that it's continuous. Change is ever present. It's always been there, by the way. We've always changed, but not at the rate that it is right now. You might be planning for something's going to happen. You've got a good set of plans, maybe even some sort of strategies that you're trying to implement. And through no fault of your own, those strategies are failing to work because of other matters that have come in to the equation, wherever they come from. No fault of yours, but it's it's making things difficult to actually achieve. So it's a constant re-examining, redesigning, rethinking. It means that we've got to be very much more astute in our contingency planning, because we don't know what's going to happen. And then when that happens, it's, yeah, okay, it might have been ambiguous, and it still is, but actually now we just don't understand a lot of what's going on. It's incomprehensible. We can't understand what's going on. And one thing can affect somebody else all over the world overnight, especially in terms of the political situation we've got right now. So that's what was going on after the pandemic. And in 2025, what is now emerging is this one. It's called meta-crisis. Meta-crisis. So what is meta-crisis? So this is now emerging more and more in 2025. I'm not wishing you to hit you with all these terms, but and we're still wrestling with Barney, by the way, but we've got to be prepared for this one. And what exactly is meta-crisis? I've got a simple definition here. It refers to overlapping and a multiplicity of factors, which included COVID-19, it's the pandemic, but now it's the wars that we're in right now. It's polarization, certain political changes in the geopolitics, maybe moves to the right instead of to the left or the center, and the rise of AI and what we call hybrid work, which is all about work that we hadn't actually planned for necessarily. So this is what meta-crisis is all about. It's a mix of all of these things now, and with the political polarization going on and the rise of this different technology. So there's a slightly different definition for this. It refers to what is happening in kind of a systematic way, although remember, it's non-linear, so things are happening almost by the hour sometimes. But they can connect crises. So in other words, they can cause crises over in one side, and now it's dramatically interconnected everywhere else. That encompasses multiple domains such as these. Yes, our environment is at risk, of course, global warming, all that stuff. Our economic situations, technological, which is what we've just been talking about, and of course, the political shift in terms of geopolitics and culture as well. And then also what's happening then is the knock-on effect of creating this, a complex, self-reinforcing and deeply existential challenge, meaning it's like threatening our existence in some ways. This is the incomprehensibility part. So what is it that we're focused on today? Which part of that? It's about AI, artificial intelligence. But by the way, we are looking at emotional intelligence as well, and emotional intelligence crosses everything that we've just seen there, whether it's economic, political, social, climatic, whatever, because we have to be able to handle ourselves. So it actually it goes across everything. But with this one, this is particularly topical and relevant to us right now. So we know what's going on here. We've seen all this stuff, and there's all manner of threats. AI could wipe out humans. We're going to have a crash on the stock market, all manner of things there. And even Google, it's creating an AI more advanced than systems built by humans. So Google itself is creating this. These are all sort of headlines and threats and worrying news, maybe. Some by the BBC, CNN, and so on. So this explosion then is most definitely rocketing. It started in the late 2010s. Actually, as I said to you, we knew about this many years ago. Machine learning, it was called then. But it started to gain momentum in the around 2010s, and then, but it was still in its infancy. We still hadn't quite got the technology, but then suddenly the technology arrived in the 20s, and things started to happen. But in midway 2015, DeepMinds, which is this the Chinese aspect of the competition to Google and so on, their AlphaGo defeated a world champion Go player, which just illustrated AI's potential in complex problem solving, which is what that was. So that was the kind of first real hit, and people saw that. Now, 2020, there's an organization called OpenAI that was formed, and that's to kind of standardize some of the interfaces and everything else that relates to AI for various software packages to interface to things, to different engines. Now, they released GPT-3, which was largely a language model. So you could communicate with it in text, actually. And so in 2020, this is where we started to see, wow, this stuff is arriving, because now we, the ordinary person in the street, will start to understand this and work with it in a natural language. And then 2022, then OpenAI followed that. And guess what came about? It was ChatGPT. I remember it well. People were talking. Have you heard of this thing? ChatGPT. I mean, it spread like wildfire. And as it says here, 100 million plus users within 2 months. Now, if that isn't an indication of Barney World, I don't know what else is. So fast, so rapid. But ChatGPT did bring AI into the normal public consciousness, and not just in the labs and not just in the hands of absolute specialists, but suddenly even the public were aware of this, and the public could use it because it was based on a natural language in terms of its processing. This led to these things here: increased investment, integration across all sectors. And now we've got this AI boom. It's really, really booming. And here's an indication of that boom. So if you look back, 2022 was when that sort of AI, Gen AI started through ChatGPT. So then, as soon as that happened with all those users, look what happened in 2023. It rocketed in terms of investment. Generative AI was like going to take over the world in 2023. So there is a global market projection now. So for those of you who are interested to know about this stuff, in 2023, when it jumped like that, it was at the rate of worth somewhere in investment was 196 billion. In 2023. Now, the forecast by 2030, according to the Radicati Group, is $826 billion. You can see how fast this is actually expanding. They're still not quite got the next generation of AI, by the way. And then there's a generation after that they're working on yet. But it's not there yet. It is not there. And that essentially is just sort of go faster stuff. But it's going to come. And then 826 billion is going to be some kind of investment. The forecast, anyway, 2030. But let's not be surprised if it exceeds that. So this is the sort of messages that we get, that 73% of CEOs say that AI is top investment priority. They need to be looking at this most seriously and most urgently. And interestingly, that 72% of businesses have already adopted AI for at least one business function. And I can tell you how true that is, because about 3 weeks ago, I was in Saudi. I was running a workshop, and it was for Al-Mirai. And Al-Mirai up there, it was all of their legal department were wanting to look at this whole concept of can AI help them? How can AI help them? And it was a fascinating session actually that we all had there. And then I, of course, brought in the EI side of things. But even everyone's looking at this. And actually, as it so happens, then as a result of this investment, etc., there's been a 25 times growth in generative AI since 2019. So, according to Salesforce, 65% of organizations worldwide are using the technologies regularly. So how about your organization? I'd be really interested to know from you about your organization. So what I'd like you to do is I'm going to try my best here to open up a poll. And so I'm going to ask you to just give me your answer to this question. Does your organization use generative AI technologies regularly? You may or you may not be aware of it, okay, but you're not sure in that case, or yes, most definitely it's somewhere you're aware of it, or maybe you're a major user. Maybe you are. So I'm going to launch this poll now. I'd be really interested to hear what you've got to say, just for a few seconds. Here it comes. If I can do it. Okay, it should be loading. It should be loading. You should be able to see it. Okay. So let me have your answers. If it's working indeed. Not sure. I don't know. Can everybody see it? You got it? Wow. Okay, that fits. All of that fits with what we're seeing here, except maybe even more so. 84% as opposed to what Salesforce is saying. So we've got somewhere 86%, 14%. Really interesting. 83%, 16, 84%. That's the conclusion. 84% of people have said, yes, we are using AI in our organization, and 16% are not, either not or not sure or something like that. But it's actually yes and no on this one. So 82% has gone down. So more people are voting no now. So it's 18. No, it's 80. Oh, it's coming down. So more people are saying no. Carry on. I'll just leave it for a few more seconds. A few more seconds. Anybody now? Just give me your poll, yes or no. We got to 81 now. 81. Yeah. So it's now 81% of organizations are using it. 19% are not. You can see the ratio there. It backs up everything we see. Everything we see. Okay, thank you very much indeed for that. Appreciate that. By the way, no names have been recorded in this or listed in any way whatsoever. Okay, 36 responses we got there. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. 108 people in total, 36 of you responded. All right. So, interesting. The AI adoption by sector then is interesting as well. The highest adoption industries are these here in manufacturing, IT or information services, healthcare. They're approximately running at the rate of 12%. And then some of those that are coming up are construction, retail sector, and they're slower. That's interesting as well. So, but it's gathering pace, most definitely. So what's exactly is this again? How is it going to impact us economically? Now we're expected to. It's going to contribute to by 15.7 trillion to the global economy by 2030. So in other words, although it's growing at such incredible rates, it's actually going to manifest itself in improved productivity and goods and decisions and whatever else it happens to be. It's going to generate an extra 15.7 trillion. Now, here's an interesting one. Yes is the answer. It could take your job away. And AI might actually eliminate 85 million jobs. Scary, scary. However, here we go. With almost every technological advance in our history, jobs have been lost, but more opportunities have been created. So there's always been a kind of a growth, and employment has changed significantly. Now they say that's going to actually create 97 million new jobs. So ultimately, by 2030, a net gain of 12 million jobs. Now, there'll be jobs that your children to have, and that your children's children have, that we have never heard of before, never, because they haven't been invented yet. But that is the dramatic thing about technology. I've been in technology all my life, by the way, graduated from university, went straight into technology. And and all the while, people sometimes I was accused of removing people's jobs and so on. But ultimately, overall, all new ones have been created. New opportunities are there. And that's what's going to happen. Now, for some people in the interim, it's not going to be pleasant. True, absolutely. But ultimately, it's going to, if this is true by 2030, 15.7 trillion will be the major contribution of all of this. So we have to be prepared. That's absolutely true. And certainly, if we look at usage, then 40% of the US population, this is interesting, between these ages here, are reported using AI in some way. And the largest percentage is at home, which actually fits the model that I see a lot. It's slightly higher than at work. Because it's more complex sometimes to introduce it at home, at work rather. And in terms of the demographics, so most of the users are millennials or Gen Zs. Not yet Gen Alphas because they're still emerging. We don't know. That's the next set of generation. But 65% are becoming very acquainted with it. And so, as far as the employed are concerned, 72% of employed indicate a strong adoption among younger working age individuals. So, so that's the kind of demographics of all of this stuff. So yes, as you would expect, the younger generations are much quicker to adopt this. Although I have to say, and I'm very pleased to say it, I'm definitely not one of those, but I use it all the time. We use it all the time, even in the training side of things. Helps enormously. So what does it actually or mean in terms of putting it to the test? Let's see. Now, the Boston Consulting Group had there's various case studies. They did quite a lot on this, have done very recently. And this one here, this is a very controlled study, shows a massive potential for AI, but also some potential concerning pitfalls. So first of all, they discovered the bottom line, in terms of creativity, 12.2% more ideas by AI systems, and 40% of them were much better. Interesting. And 25% more quicker than the human is capable, on the average human is capable of achieving. So these were just some sort of basic studies that were done to show that. That's the kind of summary. Now, what is interesting here is that I work with an organization, the largest neuroscience, emotional intelligence for leaders, the largest network in the world. It's called 6 Seconds. They've been in existence for over 28 years now, and we work with very, very robust, very in-depth emotional intelligence assessments of all sorts, of all types. And I work with those as well. So I'm an assessor for using 6 Seconds technology and tools. So what happened? At 6 Seconds, they said, okay, let's have some look at how ChatGPT and generative AI compares in various ways with the average human being. So they gave ChatGPT an IQ test. And this is what came out. Unsurprisingly, IQ, ChatGPT rather, was better, 99%. ChatGPT was 99% better than the average human. Now you'd expect that for all manner of reasons. And the interesting thing is also, when they looked at this, that should say also detected tumors on a CT scan with an error rate that was significantly lower than a human radiologist could be. Scary, scary. And in terms of legal issues, this is what the stuff we were discussing actually at up at Al Marai. These AIs spotted legal issues in non-disclosure agreements far more accurately. Well, 95% versus 84, but far faster. 1 hour, 30 minutes on average versus 26 seconds trying to find it in using AI. And actually, some of the guys who were telling me who were on the workshop said, well, 1 hour, 30 minutes is actually quite a short time. Sometimes it can take us a day to do this stuff, or more even if it's complex. So yes, okay, AI, it's got tremendous advantages in this kind of application. And then this study gave a whole bunch of computer programmers, they gave them a task. Please, can you code this job? So they had these computer programmers had to create the code that would create a program, if you want to call it that, an application. And they gave it to an AI system, generative AI system, and they did it in 55% faster than a software engineer. So what on earth is going to happen to software engineers, to computer programmers? But fear not, because if anybody's in IT here, that was a first pass. This is the sort of stuff I used to do many, many years ago, and it will do that. Is it as efficient as it should be? Is it as elegant as it should be? Is the system able to maintain it with new generations of language or new iterations of language or new versions of operating systems that come out? Is it going to be able to attune to those things? Well, that's exactly where you need, because that's a much more complex task than generating it in the first place, just as a set of code. Now that's going to be very tricky for an AI system to do those things, and to streamline it and make it smarter in many ways. So we're not saying it can't be done, but it's going to be much more difficult to do it in an elegant fashion, and even projected to the future when it comes to maintenance and so on of these systems. But at this moment, go for it. This is what we say to programmers: use it, and then refine it. Check it, refine it, and apply your creativity to improving it even more. So what are the shortfalls? Here's one interesting little test that was given to the system, an AI system. it was given a whole collection of handwritten digits from so very many people, all writing in a different style, of course. And they wrote these digits down. And so they said to AI, okay, can you tell us what this represents? Now, when they did it initially, 1, 2, 3, and it sort of came out. It came out like this. You can see this on your top. Okay, we can sort of understand it. I'm just not quite sure what the two are at the end of the first line, but nevertheless, it came out in some ways. It's a form of optical character recognition, but not when bombarded by many, many different styles all at once. Now, this is what happened when they put it through 20 iterations. In other words, 20 different styles. It starts to go fuzzy. This is the New York Times that did this. It starts to go fuzzy. Anyway, when they put more and more iterations through, this fuzziness here that you can see on the right-hand side ended up as just a blob. It was completely, utterly unreadable. It was too much for the AI system to cope with this. Now, it might be true to say that as these engines get more powerful and as a technology enabling this to get more powerful, that might improve. But there's another factor. It comes out as there's so many algorithms, they're confusing each other. They're actually confusing each other. So when it got to something like 50 iterations, it was useless, absolutely useless. So the Times say, they asked ChatGPT, are you intelligent? And this is what ChatGPT answered. Well, ChatGPT, I am intelligent in performing specific tasks, in understanding and responding to context. However, I lack the depth of human intelligence, such as creativity, born out of experience, emotional resonance, and you guys got it. Emotional intelligence, empathy, emotions. That's what that is. And therefore, that leads to conscious decision making. Yes, it is true that they're pretty good at making decisions, simple decisions, where the decisions are very categoric, yes and no. Yes, it's quick. It's amazingly quick. Complex decisions, different story. So ChatGPT said this: it's better to think of me as an advanced tool rather than an intelligent one, rather than intelligent in the human sense. Interesting. That was all coming out of what the New York Times did this year. So, also this year, 6 seconds, as I said, they put the ChatGPT through a series of tests. Now, you could come on one of my courses, and every single one of you, if we do a certain type, would do an assessment. It's not too onerous. It's online. So many 77 questions, whatever. It takes 10 to 15 minutes to do it, and it's all the kind of same thing. I mean, it's standard. We've been doing this for many years now, and so. And what we get out of that is a whole different set of analysis showing each one of your emotional intelligence competencies. So 6 seconds did this. I thought this was ingenious. So they gave ChatGPT the same assessment, exactly the same, that I might give you, etc. And these results were different. As it says up there, these results were telling, especially when compared to its results in an IQ test that we saw before, where ChatGPT proved it was 99% higher scores in IQ than the average human. Now, with EQ, this is what happened. Okay, we know that IQ 199% better than people, massive score of 155. Okay, now in EQ terms, it came out to be 93. The average score for a human being in emotional intelligence is 100. So in other words, it was only better than 32% of the population at large in terms of gaining emotional insight, being able to connect with people, being able to influence people, and to be able to build relationships. So this is there. So one could summarize this that actually ChatGPT is really emotionally challenged because that's how it scores on our sheet. They're emotionally challenged. That's right at the beginning. That's right at the start. Um, and so then you start with challenged, and then you go to emerging, and then you go to functional, then you go to expert at right at the other end, and in the middle is sort of masterful. Um, but if you look at this in terms of IQ, yeah, cognitive expert, cognitive rational thinking, naturally, because that's what it does. But if you look at EQ, very emotionally challenged. And it comes out like that. If you look at the bell curve, how does AI compare to people? Well, IQ, it's way over here on the right-hand side of the bell curve, as you can see there, 155. Now, in terms of EQ, it's up here in that sector there, 32%. When I saw this at first, I thought, actually, I'm surprised. I'm actually surprised that it's quite that high. So why? What is it where does ChatGPT score in our emotional intelligence competencies? Well, here is the chart well, I'll show it to you in a minute, that is going to show you that. But Joshua Friedman, who conducted this from 6 Seconds, the CEO, he actually summarized this, and I'm going to read it just in case you can't easily see this. AI is skyrocketing. That's what we've seen. The investment is huge. When I gave Gen AI tools an emotional intelligence assessment, they scored poorly. The AI's explanation is that they don't really experience emotion, they only simulate it, they mimic it. So for people to use our advantage, our competitive advantage, it's time to get skilled with real emotion. That is what actually came out of ChatGPT. Actually, it wasn't. It was one of the other generative AI tools. It was ChatGPT, and also it was something called Claude. They both sat this, and it came out the same. So here we go. The biggest difference is what you said right at the beginning. It's actually emotions. Emotions. You know what, folks? Thank goodness for our human emotions. Because let's be honest, if we didn't have our ability to have these emotions, then why are we needed? Because AI can do it much better than we can. 99, 98, 99% better than we are. We would definitely be redundant. But they're in terms of the emotional side of things, and the consciousness, it fails miserably. So that's why we are needed. And that's why when we're having complex situations and complex decisions to make, you have to have human input. Now, I just wanted to show you this. This is what I was going to show you before. Whenever I do an assessment from anybody, I get this kind of score for people. I'm not asking you to understand all these, the histogram, the different competencies on the bottom on this horizontal scale. There's 8 of them in total. And here you can see the scoring mechanism that we get. So we've got challenged, we've got emerging, we've got functional, where 40% is where most people are. Then we've got skilled, and then right at the top, which is 130 in terms of EQ scores, it's expert. So that's the top 10% expert. The bottom 10% is challenged. The next 20% is emerging, and the top 20% is skilled. 40% is in the middle. So you can see when when ChatGPT scored that in terms of the sum total of its EQ, it was in challenging, which is here. It's the very lowest one that there is. 10% in many, actually, of the human population. Now, why did ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, whoever, score as high as 32%? Well, there are two major competencies here that stand out. The first one is this: apply consequential thinking at 106. Applying consequential thinking was smarter and better than the average human, which is at 100. That is about critical thinking. That is our ability to look at different pathways. That is our ability to handle data in a way, to be able to rationalize things. And so that stands to reason. And actually, they asked ChatGPT, why are these two things here so high? And that was the reason it gave, because we're programmed for logic. And in many ways, applying consequential thinking is trying to rationalize our emotions into some form of logic. So that's what we use for it. It's very powerful in humans, but it's more powerful in EQ in AI systems. The next one was optimism. So I actually asked the people, why is optimism so high? And Claude gave the answer: because we are programmed, we can only respond according to the input that we're given and the algorithms that we're given, and those algorithms are there to help us find solutions. So some of you who said problem solving, correct. Maybe even certain types of decisions, correct. Because it's only programmed to look for the positive sides of things. But in human decision making, when you're interacting with human beings, you need to be considering a lot more factors than just purely the critical thinking elements, the logic, and purely optimism. You have to look at other aspects too. So if you take these two out, because that's what they were programmed for, 106, the apply consequential thinking and and exercising optimism, if you take those out, then you can see that now suddenly AI is down here, right on the opposite extreme of what it is for IQ. Take out consequential thinking, take out optimism, and there it is, right down here, leaving what is essentially all the emotional stuff. And if you saw that before, here we got here empathy. It's the lowest score of everything because it doesn't know about emotions. The next one is what we call navigating emotions. Don't have to explain what that is, but it's actually how can you navigate emotions if it hasn't got any, etc. So it's an interesting look at this. So what does it all mean? What does it all mean in the time that we've got left now? What conclusion? And we're very often, when we're interfacing with senior leadership and so on, and people are asking us, what does it actually mean, all this stuff, to us as a business and to our employees and to our productivity and to our workplace? And that's what this report does. 6 seconds, the EI and the AI Workplace Status Report. It is actually available if you want to get onto the 6 seconds website. I think you'll be able to bring it down now. But it's fascinating. And so this is just one of the conclusions that it formed. So what we know about this as well is that what is going on in the world is there's a 5.5% decline in global EQ over the last 4 years. And it was declining before that in VUCA. But once every 2 years, 6 seconds do this. They go out and they do the state of the heart report. They go to hundreds of thousands and thousands of businesses and people, and they ask all sorts of questions. So we know what the scores are. But the other interesting thing is there's a 22% decline in trust in governments throughout the world. We see it because we ask the right questions. And here is this: 60% of employees describe themselves as emotionally detached from what's going on very often because of stress. Now, if anybody wants to know more than this, we run emotional intelligence courses. We run them purely emotional intelligence courses. We also run the leading with EQ, and all this stuff is much further and in more detail. It's explained. So, and just the last state of the heart report shows this. Excuse these abbreviations. The nomenclature here is enhanced emotional literacy, recognizing patterns. The red one here, the third one in, is consequential thinking, the thing we've just been talking about. Navigating emotions, intrinsic motivation, optimism, EO. And the other one is empathy, IE, and this one is all about purpose. PNG is all about purpose. But if you look at this, whereas before empathy was the lowest one, in 2023, after the pandemic, we found optimism was the lowest. This is the decrease. Optimism and motivation was the lowest, along with purpose. People were confused. They didn't know. No real change in applying consequential thinking. People were pretty good at that. And actually, empathy is slightly improved over other recent years, but it's still going down. So that's just a bit of sort of information. But globally, this is what's going on. And there's millions of statistics here about genders and about professions and about sectors. It's fascinating stuff. And then if it's compounded further by data growth worldwide since 2010, we've got to handle ever more volumes of data. And the projection according to 2028 goes up to there. And it's, if you look on the left hand, it's zettabytes or zettabytes. I mean, we don't even talk, the maximum we talk about is terabytes. I can tell you when I first started this, the absolute maximum that we ever talked about was a kilobyte. Then it was megabytes. Then it was terabytes, and now it's going to be zettabytes. So you can see what's going on here. There's complete data overload. We have to handle this. So this is the verdict, if you like. AI is driving the need for EI ever more because the gulf is getting bigger and bigger. So AI is fantastic, used appropriately, but we've got to keep in step. We've got to keep in step and sort of mobilize our emotional intelligence more than we've ever done before. So AI is driving now the need for EI. Excuse all this text, but this has come directly out of this report. Not only is demand for EI skills fueled by this meta crisis of ours, but AI actually is also fueling demand for our skills, for uniquely human skills, because it's not there, basically. And there's a danger of relying too much on just straight logic. So the value of EQ is obviously in jobs like nursing, ministry, teaching, blah, blah, blah. New York Times report there, and an AI expert. But as AI and automation enter more fields, making more people feel connected, socially fulfilled will become a high value skill. And so good lawyers will become like legal therapists. You know, we'll be consulting people all the time because it's not straightforward. We think we're lawyers. We go to the AI and get this, but it's not actually the case. So lawyers it's about creating trust, which is declining in clients and helping solve their own problems, just writing briefs and doing research. Doctors, the same thing. Sometimes doctors think they're going to be out of a job. Well, be careful, because it's not always what it seems in terms of AI and that kind of thing. And even successful programs won't just be isolated geniuses pecking out codes. There'll be people who can lead teams, think strategically, because they've got to elevate themselves. This is what I'm saying about new professions, new thinking, new types of jobs will emerge. And then people who are skilled in the social aspects and EQ will be a better position for the future than people whose primary skill is making or doing things only. And on my courses, you will hear about resonant leadership. That's the new age leadership. Absolutely, at its core of resonant leadership is not AI, it is EI. It's founded on that, and books have been written about this stuff. It's founded very squarely. The old model of leadership is out of the window now. It's this one. Technically and human skills are symbiotic. So in other words, we've got to use both of these things. And so therefore we need to be making investments as well as technical skills, equally exciting and critical human skill experience, because we're needed. So what's the way forward then? Very quickly, in just a few seconds, there's 6 steps. 6 steps for you to consider. It's very simple in its high level. So step 1, what is step 1? You've got to be able to increase your readiness to adopt AI. Now, leaders are prioritizing it, but our employees in the workplace prioritizing? Maybe there's more communication about it needed to be enforced. Step 2, cultivate this, a growth mindset. Don't fear it, use it, because it's going to change regardless. Capture it, utilize it, use it to your advantage. And if you want to know more about that, we run these courses: growth mindset, fixed mindset, growth mindset, and all about change. We do that. Third, embrace and embed emotional intelligence across all the employee life cycle. That's certainly what I specialize in, and I focus on that. Because you know why we know this? That EI is a much stronger predictor of success than IQ. Much more. It's at least 10 times more successful in forecasting success than IQ. It's because we need to be able to socially interact. And certainly in times of uncertainty and complexity, this is more valuable to us individually to be able to control ourselves, really. Step 4. Yes, invest in employee well-being, and that's partly mindfulness and all that kind of stuff, keeping fit. Yes, absolutely, but also EQ, because high emotional intelligence and optimism and that sort of thing yields greater life expectancy. Step 5. Use the right tool for the right type of work. In other words, there's various AI tools. Find them, research it, use it, but do not substitute it for the human interface ultimately to make crucial decisions. And then the last one, you really do have to use your EI in times when it's crucial, hard times. Anybody can sail a ship when the sea is calm, but as soon as you get into a stressful situation, that's when you need to equip your people and your leaders with EI to be able to do these things and to be able to liaise and work and build trust with their employees and their teammates. So need to, step 6, encourage acknowledgement of all this stuff. Yes, we're going to be faced with a Barney world and meta crisis, okay, but it's not a catastrophe. We can handle it by collaborating and determining solutions. I don't think I've got time to show you this.
Yes, it's only a few struggling
seconds.
to lead a multicultural team whilst keeping up with AI-driven workflows? Technology can undoubtedly enhance productivity, but without emotional intelligence, it can also create disconnection. We know that AI helps to automate tasks and analyze data, but it lacks that all-important human intuition. Emotional intelligence ensures that technology serves your team, and AI cannot replace the human connection that drives engagement and trust. Great leaders will use AI for efficiency, such as translating languages or tracking performance. And at the same time, they'll use emotional intelligence to interpret emotions, build relationships, and adapt communication across cultures. So when you combine AI with emotional intelligence, you'll get a high-performing, globally connected team that works smarter and collaborates better. If this video resonated with you, hit like, subscribe for more leadership insights, and remember, AI can process data, but emotional intelligence builds trust.
There you are. That is the sort of summary of everything we've been talking about here. So is it AI versus EI? Because that's a failing formula. What we have to do in successful organizations to adopt a yes and. So it's both AI and emotional intelligence to maintain engagement, maximize the potential of AI offers, and ultimately improve our productivity so significantly. So we need to develop these strategies, training, transparent communication, all those things are absolutely essential. So it's just over a little bit longer. I apologize for that. So what have we actually done here? We've just looked at this, the ages that we're in, the world that we're in. The meta-crisis era is emerging. And all of these things apply in terms of AI explosion. It's got all these impacts here: leaders, economic impact, consumer response, and then AI has got strengths, but it's not the master of everything because our human input supersedes by far the capabilities of human consciousness, as it were. And so the funny thing is that AI is now driving ever more the need for EI because there's going to be more of a gulf. So those 6 steps. And then finally, if I can ask you to give feedback on this, I would be very grateful to you to do that. So can you just scan that for the minute? And I want to make sure that you've got this. Just give us some feedback. What do you think about it? It's only a short session, and okay, slightly longer than 1 hour. But I wanted to just show you that last bit. I just put that video in, by the way, right at the last because I came across it and I thought it was very pertinent. So I put it in. So sorry if it dragged on a little bit more for you. But there we go. If you can just give us some feedback, I would be very grateful. We would at Simfotix be very grateful to know what you think about this. And if any of you want to know more, then just speak to the various people at Simfotix, Kazi and Hiba and Noor and all those people, my colleagues, and they will arrange whatever you want to have, give you more information on it. But it's a fascinating subject. Okay, folks, if you've got that, you've all scanned it. I'm going to thank you very much indeed. And if anybody has got any questions, I don't mind taking them for a few minutes. I'll stay online. So please just ask me if that's what you want, if you've got anything you want to know. But if not, let me thank you on behalf of everyone at Simfotix, and I wish you all the very, very best in managing this AI explosion and managing your own emotional intelligence. So I would just say to you, put your EI, your emotional intelligence, into action as leaders and be that leader that you truly aspire to be. Okay, if anybody wants any comment, anybody got any comments, please just, I'm here for the moment. But thank you so much, all of you, for attending. I appreciate that. And thank you, folks. Thanks very much, everybody. Appreciate your comments here. If you could share the last video, I'll see if I can do that. Yeah, Sharif, it's a great little clip which I found because it's so pertinent and it's read off the press actually. I'll do what I can to do that. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Really am. Have a great day to everybody else as well. And I hope that's given you some food for thought. And maybe, if you want to know more about this, then we'll be at your disposal, always. So, yeah, I'm just looking through the chat if I've missed anything, actually. No, I think that's absolutely fine. Well, I tell you, I just hope maybe I can see you all again, in person even, if you want to know more. Thank you, Farina. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks.
Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks. Good luck. Have a good afternoon. Rest of the afternoon. Thank you.
I mean, we're on.